Welcome to MSP Hub Studio, episode number 2, where we talk about technology, innovation, and talk to great leaders like Travis Woods. Travis, nice to meet you. How are you today?
Hey, Sam, thanks so much. I'm doing real well, and I'm glad to be here with
Tell
you.
us a little bit about yourself. I know recently you've had some changes in your career, positive ones from what I understood. Love to hear
Yeah,
more about them.
yeah, absolutely. So over the past 16 years, I've run an MSP, Fort Point IT, out of the San Francisco Bay Area, and we really started by taking care of startups. When we started, the world had changed. It was the last financial crisis, and there was the giant shuffle of folks leaving corporate America and just a lot of change in the air. So it was a strange time to start a company, but it worked out in my favor because we specialized in these startups, and most of them were started from like 3 to 5 people with a couple MacBook Pros and some capital, but not a whole lot. So the idea was to help these companies create the infrastructure that they needed to scale and build, but on a budget and in a dispersed environment. So we really made our mark by helping folks be cloud first, before it was cool, and working in remote areas or from their homes, but still having that connection and having those files available, things that they needed, the resources at the push of a button. So that was, yeah. So I've been doing that for the last 16 years, which was fantastic. And working in the San Francisco Bay Area, everyone here has a interesting hustle. Everyone here is working on, sure, they may have a full-time job, but they're also working on something that's like a passion project. So I met a
Yeah.
lot of entrepreneurs along the way, which really kind of helped me as well in my own journeys.
Talk about a city at the bleeding edge of technology, and you get to live it every day or see it every day. I mean, that's got to be a fantastic
And when we
experience. Talk about cloud and AI, strategy disruption, and just basically what the industry from an MSP's perspective how it's being redefined. I'd love to hear your input on that. Love to understand kind of your thoughts around, what MSPs are going to experience moving forward.
Yeah, no, and this is a pivotal point. Like, I think a lot of folks have said it, but it reveals itself to me in little moments, and you're like, oh yeah, this is how it's going to change. Intrinsically, that this is a precipice, this is a big moment for
Right.
those changes. But again, it's there's so much hype around it. You're like, wait, well, what is the actual nugget here? What's the kernel that we're working with that's actually going to change things? And I've seen it play out. I've seen it play out pretty significantly in companies like MSPs specifically that have had some software development or have had some type of that internal resource are now able, and they have the tools to really create efficiencies that can remove labor, remove hours of service, like make some significant cuts in costs just by the tools that have become available to them.
I agree.
And so I think that there is pretty amazing in that we'll see these people who've had that software background become the leaders in the changes that are happening using AI because
Yeah.
they know how it works. They've got a sense of it. So
Operationalizing AI, I think, is going to become more and more important, not only for service providers, but specifically ones in technology. That's their focus, right? And I guess
yeah.
that leads me into the following question of the horizon, coming up above us in terms of AI. What would
Mhm.
you recommend a startup to a smaller SMB, MSP, or even a mature one? Maybe
Yeah.
a couple of top 2, 3 suggestions that would help their
Okay,
business
so
grow.
it depends. Like, if you are an established MSP, you've got some processes and you have some things in place that are that operational maturity
Right.
that has built checks and balances, ensured a high level of service. So it becomes a little more difficult to displace any of those things or to rewrite it with it. So I think in that case, really we're looking at what are the efficiencies that AI can bring to to that type of organization. And I've heard my MSP peers that I've talked to, one company was using AI to analyze every deal that came in, and they looked at past deals, looked at other conditions that were out there, who they were going up against, and they used it to help them price new deals. And so what they found over time, after about 6 months, is that the deals that they were winning were coming in at about 15%, 10 to 15% higher than what their account managers and sales reps were pricing deals at, because AI doesn't get a commission. It doesn't care. It's not invested in like closing that deal as much as a salesperson is. And so perhaps it's the salesperson's going to pull back a little just to make it more enticing.
Right. Right. It's basically using its programmatic logic to do its job. It's not emotional, more or less. And to your point, when you have a process that's going to be continuous around sales revenue, I would agree with you that the probability of a higher, sales bracket is going to be a
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, that's amazing. So your first recommendation is figure out, for the MSPs, of course, figure out how to use AI to increase your pipeline and decrease the effort that you put into the sales motion, at least out of the gate. Correct?
yeah, absolutely. No, that's a perfect way to summarize it. Because when we look around, we have all of these pools of data. We have all
Right.
of this information about the way that our technicians are responding, the way that our customers are responding. We are as MSPs, we are really good at collecting data.
Yes, we
You
are.
know, not not just feeding it to a sim, but collecting data in our PSAs and in our RMMs. And so really looking at those pots of data to make inferences of what's going to happen next, or what is the best course of action. So we're seeing a lot of, the first place that MSPs are really focusing on implementing AI is in the help desk, right? Our level ones. And in fact, I'm consulting with a company right now that's has a product that's coming out to do just that. And it's interesting because that's a really cool area. It makes sense, right? Like logically, it makes sense to help our level ones become smarter, help them to solve problems faster, help them to also elevate their own skills, so that they're not just fixing printers. They're actually working on real problems that that can help, that elevate their own education and their own skill set. So there are two camps. You either buy that technology, or you build it in house.
Yeah.
And I think those, it depends on the organization, but
It does. It depends on the organization, the size, obviously. A traditional, call it lifestyle MSP, right? Built from the ground up. The CEO is wearing multiple hats and is, feeling responsible for all of the tasks, and and the responsibility behind it. And sometimes it's hard to let go of those responsibilities, especially when you're still in that quote unquote startup phase. But
Mhm.
Warren Buffett says it best: it takes 30 years to create a friendship and 30 seconds to torch it. And
Yeah.
so,
So
when you talk about an experience, what you don't want to do, even as a small MSP, is you don't want to have your customer have a bad experience.
yeah.
Maybe because of, inbound call, and the person picking that up had a bad day or something like that. So to your point, I completely agree with you in terms of the value of AI. It's not there to replace necessarily someone, but it's there to also help protect some of those errors in human tendencies that kind of kick in when we're dealing with customers. So,
It changes and that's a great point, because it changes the way that we train our techs. And so now what we're doing is we need to train for not the task, but we need to train the techs on how to identify a good result. So when
correct.
the AI comes back with something, if they're telling you to wipe a device after you know, after like a browser crashes, you're like, okay, that's not a good solution. Like, yes, it will probably fix the problem, but that's not the right solution.
Correct.
So
Correct.
our focus on training really has to be, you know, as opposed to being task oriented, it has to be outcome oriented, so that we can ensure that the technician is taking the, is taking the advice that whatever, whatever AI we're using is coming back with, analyzing it and saying, okay, this does make sense. Yes, this, okay, these are logical. Yeah, let's proceed,
Right.
versus just taking part and parcel.
Taking a shot at doing something wrong and potentially breaking compliance or
Yeah.
introducing risk, right? You make a good point, because during COVID, I was speaking to a CTO once, a pretty large organization, and he
Mhm.
said to me, Sam, we thought about everything. We thought about redundancy, backup, BCDR, all the industry terms that basically introduce resilience into an environment,
Yeah.
but we never thought about one thing. And I said, what was that? He goes, never thought about not coming back to the office.
Wow.
And it stuck in my head, because I'm like, this is the first time in the entire globe
Mhm.
is experienced to have to figure out how to work and not go back into the office.
Yeah.
And so what happened, unfortunately, during that era is people tried to stand up things as fast as they could to satisfy the stakeholder.
Mhm.
By virtue of that speed and lack of accuracy, what did they do? They introduced cyber threat
Yeah.
and, little pinholes of opportunities where bad actors can come in.
Shadow IT was
Right.
probably just, yeah, off the
Yeah.
chart. Like,
Yeah.
folks were using their own personal Dropbox accounts to share files out, and
Exactly.
yeah,
And and,
absolutely.
and bad habits were caused by employees as well, because they were just obviously trying to do their job,
Right.
uh, figure out how to move a file, do whatever. But in that proxy, they unfortunately created some issues for the organization. So that
Yeah.
leads me to my probably my more or less final question. As it relates to cybersecurity and AI, obviously in the world of technology, security has become top-notch topic in conversation. It grows by about 20% year over year so far.
Yeah.
AI is going to introduce a lot of deep seek functionality. What do you tell all the MSPs to look out for in that case?
So with regard to AI and cybersecurity, man, it's if anything, I think the we know that it just magnifies the threat landscape. Like, it magnifies it because now we can we can see things that we couldn't see before. Like, we know AI reveals things at scale that have never really been seen before. So with that, our attack surface is it can be hit from multiple areas all at the same time, whatever that is, whether it's technical in nature, whether it's socially engineering in nature, like all of those vectors that we've been training on, protecting with tools, protecting with policy, protecting with best practices. They're all being hit at the same time right now. And so ultimately, I think education still remains one of our most important tools against some of these attacks. Yes, the tools will continue to get better, and we will be able to fend off, be able to identify more AI type attacks. But again, those are technological solutions, and the person who is either in the loop of a process, of an AI process, or the person who is still doing the things that humans will have to do, is going to be the most vulnerable target. And that education, to elevate them, to show, so they know the sophistication of what can come at them, is still going to be paramount in protecting organizations. And
I
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you that there's AI is not going to replace people. It will define process, make it more tighter. But
Mhm.
people, it's an input output concept, right? So people have to provide the input, so that way AI can do its job from an orchestration standpoint or whatever the case may be. But it just goes to show you how valuable that the human input needs to be in order for AI to be successful or effective or efficient, right? That's just
Yeah.
my perspective, of course.
Well, I just
So
did a oh,
yeah.
sorry, I was going to tell a quick story, but that's related. But so I just did a panel with Kirsten Bay of Cysurance, and she was talking about the the situations where somebody is compromised. When they dig into that, it is still coming, like despite all the tools that we have available to us today, it is still situations where someone is either violating a compliance policy, someone who is making a mistake. It's still the human in the middle. And that's a real like fundamental thing that we're not going to get around until we start changing the way that we educate people about cybersecurity and cyber risk. So
It's a humbling experience if you've ever been through one, supporting a customer. Unfortunately, I we were called into a situation years back, just around the time COVID hit. Large East Coast based dental practice got hit with a pretty strong ransomware attack. And without going into the technicals or details, what you realize organizations don't understand is how important their technology is. You
mhm,
know, to them, it's a machine with a keyboard doing something until revenue drops and until they can't open up the doors or until a scanner can't pull up your photo or whatever from an EMR perspective. Then you're like, oh my God, you know what? We depend so much on this hardware that without it, our business will fail. And that is the whole premise of how to protect your hardware and how to have these best practices in place. And to the question of how AI is going to support the industry, in my opinion,
mhm,
it's going to certainly provide insight. I think gap remediation will be faster because it's identifying matter more so than a human person looking at a dashboard and sort of waiting for that red, green, yellow experience to happen.
yeah,
And I think that space has a lot ahead of it, if you
yeah.
ask me.
Well, and I think it's also supported by this. There is a real significant willingness in the MSP community to raise compliance and to have MSPs meeting these standards. I mean, I'm on GTIA's Channel Development Advisory Committee, and GTIA is working real hard to bring Trustmark to market so that MSPs can now, there's a level that they're operating at that is standards based, it is well defined, and it allows us to measure how well this MSP is meeting the standard versus another one.
Yeah,
So, and that I think is good because it brings observability into what we're doing in our own processes, in our own maturities. And I think ultimately is going to raise the quality of the service that MSPs, ITSPs, however, I know it goes both ways, but ITSPs provide to their customers and to the world. So,
absolutely. Well, for everyone listening, Travis Woods is your guy when it comes to process and security. Definitely reach out to him. He's available for a consultation or just to help you out with any general questions from all the communities of MSP providers out there. I'm
community is
going to
something I
shift
have a lot of.
over.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to shift over to leadership. Obviously, you've been a leader in the space. You've built companies, and sometimes it looks easy, and it's not always as easy. What have been some of your biggest challenges as as a CEO and as being a thought leader and an industry driving person, right? Like that's been your jam in the West Coast. Uh,
Yeah.
Tell me about some of your challenges and things that have changed your career in a better way.
Oh, wow. Gosh, it's such a great question because it's a reflexive question, it's such a reflective question. I think in from a perspective leadership, and leadership for me has always been about service. That's how I've approached my customers is like, how can I serve them better? The people that I meet, anyone that I'm working with, it's always, how can I serve you better? And so that's been a core tenet of my own leadership process. I think it's what's helped me build an extensive network of people. I like to say, like, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I'll certainly introduce you to him or her. So it's
Right. Yeah,
it's
you're right. Absolutely.
So yeah, so being in of service is real important, and I think that's one of the things about this community in general that I find there's a common thread that everyone here is here for the right reasons. They're here to make businesses and their customers safer, more efficient, more productive, and to have an entire industry from vendors all the way through is it's a pleasure to work in.
Challenging
It's an honor.
request, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely blessed to be in this industry. So having just kind of bumbled into it. So come on.
But to going back to leadership, Travis, I think you made an exact point. Building a business is not easy.
Mhm.
It requires discipline, drive, a sense of what revenue and operational requirements really mean to the bottom
Yeah,
line. And in our journey as an MSP formerly, and now more on the software development and marketplace side, what's important is for business owners, a couple of things in my opinion. Number one, making sure you can keep the lights on, right? That's important.
mhm,
Making sure you could take care of your staff, your people, uh, uh, covering those baseline requirements. That's number one.
yeah,
Number two is the experience, right? We want the journey of our company and our leadership to be meaningful for other people as well, not just for you as a CEO. It's almost
right.
a selfless role if you do it correctly.
Yeah,
Um, and then finally, how do we get to scale? And the best way it was told to me is the difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner is the entrepreneur can leave for 3 months and come back to a business that's still running. A business owner cannot.
yeah,
And so that's the objective at the end of the day, is to how to figure out how to grow your book of business without necessarily it needing you directly, but
mhm,
enabling people in your leadership circle to have trust and faith that they're going to do a great job and perhaps even do it better than you, which is what you want.
yeah.
So appreciate your time today, Travis. What's next in your journey at this point?
So next in my journey, I'm at a unique space. I've having stepped away from Fort Point IT has given me that space to explore kind of what's next. And over the last 3 years, I've been working in Colombia a lot, working with some amazing partners down there of mine. One of them is a Colombian citizen and also a U.S. citizen. And down there, we worked in a completely new area for me, which was the public service, working with the national police in smart cities implementations. And so
There you go.
being in that space where I'm in a different country, I'm doing something, yes, it's technology, but it's quite different from managed IT services, big infrastructure projects. Being out of my comfort zone is somehow something that I always find myself into. So I guess you could say I love a good challenge. But yeah, so I've been working in that space for a while, which has been really exciting. We've established a company, gotten everything, all the licensing that's required to get to start transacting business. We've got a staff and processes in place, and we have some contracts, which is great. So that's working well, and it's just really exciting to work in another country.
That's
And
great.
also, as I mentioned before, I want to stay in the in this space, in this channel community, and so I've gained a lot of support, a lot of education. Some of my best friends are other MSPs and vendors in this channel that we've spent time together and just formed very solid friendships.
That's
So yeah, so my goal is to stay here, is to be in this channel and either help build a community around a product, help build, take a product to market in this channel. But that's what I'm looking at next. So
That's fantastic. Well, you heard it, folks. Travis Woods has a new business venture. I believe you said in Colombia, if I heard that correctly. So, if you are looking to conduct business overseas,
staffing,
look no
nearshore
further.
staffing, we can help you with that. Absolutely. So yeah, but
We've got a friend down there who can help us out. Well, thank you very much for your time today. It was an absolute pleasure to get to know you. And sounds like we're going to probably run into you at Microsoft Ignite next week as well in San Francisco. And a
absolutely.
final point. That's got to be pretty exciting for the city of San Francisco to host an event like that, I would think, correct?
Yeah, the COVID did a number on San Francisco, and all of those small businesses that really gave the city character and gave the city its charm were decimated during that time. And in the void, as we know, that there were downtown just got ugly. It got real ugly, and dangerous too. So there has been a renaissance over the last year, and I can say categorically the city is coming back, and the restaurants are beautiful. The public spaces have been cleaned up, and again, it's surrounded by water on three sides, so it really makes for a beautiful setting. It's hard to have an ugly San Francisco for sure.
And
So
that Bay Bridge is something special, I'll tell you that. That's a beautiful view right there. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, indeed. So, and I'm excited to see things like that, like Dreamforce Day, RSA, and Microsoft Ignite. Like that, for me, it's great because it becomes my home. Kind of a takeover of my home, which is a lot of fun. So,
well, you're a technologist with all the technology directly in your backyard. So, I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. To that note, Travis, have a great weekend. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your thought leadership and your experience to all of these other MSPs who are looking to grow their business and continue to move on in their careers. My name is Sam Berhume. You are watching MSP Hub Studio, episode number 2. As we continue to move forward, feel free to give us a call. Should any of these topics have been interesting to you and you'd like to expand on them, we are here to help you guys all out. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you in the next one.
fantastic. Thanks, Sam.